Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is One Piece 3-in-1. This is volumes 34, 35, and 36 of the Water 7 arc, and that's what I'm talking about today. So I haven't done a One Piece video in a while, so for those of you who don't know what One Piece is, it is a manga series, also an anime. It is the highest selling manga by a single creator, which I think it's at about over 300 million copies sold of volumes like this, right? And actually, if you include all the Shonen Jump anthologies that One Piece has been brought into in that equation, it's the highest selling period of all time, of anything, for that matter. But anyway, One Piece centers around Luffy and his gang of pirates as they circumvent the world through the Grand Line and try to find the One Piece and become the king of pirates. Kind of the short and dirty right here. But anyway, this arc right here occurs between volumes 34 and I think it ends in like volume 45, I believe. A very, very long arc, and it is quite possibly the best arc in One Piece. For many, many reasons. Number one, it's hilarious. There's a lot of story implications. And it's really where Eiichiro Oda, the creator of One Piece, really got into a groove. The series was already pretty popular in the Shonen Jump, but Water 7 kind of kicked it off and put it into hyperdrive in terms of how much of an influence this series had. Anyway, let's get into it. So, I've said before, and I'll repeat it again, the art style in One Piece is not my favorite. That being said, anyone who wants to study storytelling really should read One Piece, because it really does contain all of the tropes of shonen, the shonen manga genre, right? And Oda is really a master, even though there is some level of repetition in his plot lines and his structures. He executes them so well that every single arc seems to feel good in its own way. In fact, I think the only impediment for me for recommending One Piece would be people who are really obsessed with like art style, and then people who want something short and sweet, because One Piece is the exact opposite of short and sweet. It's freaking long and takes forever. But anyway, I'm just going to go over volume 34 right here. This is kind of the build-up to Water 7. So we jump in, and Luffy and the gang are caught up in a hilarious fight with the Foxy Pirates. Luffy is kind of dressed up with an afro, and you get a lot of jokes about afro power. This is very, very, very Japanese. But anyway, the Foxy Pirates are led by Foxy, who has like a slow beam power with his devil fruit. But Luffy is able to kind of trick him through the use of a mirror that reflects the slow beam back on him, and then he hilariously turns the tables and smacks him in the face, catches Foxy off guard, and you get this hilarious countdown where he gets his ass sent off the boat. This is when they're doing a Davy back fight, which is kind of an invention of the sorts for this universe, where pirates challenge each other and they risk each other's teammates to kind of gamble for competition and whatnot. But that's essentially the first chapter. At that point, they go back, and the whole reason why they fought those pirates was to get to kind of get back for them beating up on this old man and his horse. And then they run into this character, Aokichi. Can't pronounce Japanese today. Who is an admiral with the Navy, and you get sort of some background on how the Navy in One Piece really works. You get the three admirals that essentially run them. They're super, super powerful men. And but at first he doesn't seem like a threat. He actually has like some funny phrases and comes off as super aloof and lazy. But then later on you find out he has an enormous power. So he ate the devil fruit, and in this case his devil fruit is the chili fruit, and he has the power to basically create ice. He's what they call a Logia type in the One Piece universe. It just means like an elemental type to a degree. There's a whole lot of lore behind this. If you're curious, definitely get into One Piece and you'll find out. But yeah, now he helps out the old man. He freezes the ocean so the old man can go across the ocean and get back with his family. But then he kind of turns on the Straw Hat Pirates and says, you know what? I think you guys are going to be a problem. I think I better take care of you. So they get into a fight, and he kind of essentially crushes them. He absolutely freezes Nico Robin, who is a member of the crew at this time, and and essentially defeats the pirates at this point. And it wasn't until essentially Luffy challenges him and is able to keep him, and through basically the honor of a duel, he's able to convince him from basically wiping out this entire pirate crew at that time. The rest of them have to rush back to the ship to try to save their friends that are frozen alive. Pretty interesting concepts here that Oda comes up with. But the basis for this whole conflict right here with them and the Admiral is it sets the premise of the conflict of Nico Robin later on in the Water 7 arc. So essentially, Nico Robin joins the crew after a previous arc, and she was kind of introduced as a villain initially, and then she becomes a part of the crew. It's a very common trope in Japanese manga for villains to eventually become allies or sort of frenemies of a sort, right? And in a way, the crew is not really sure whether she is on their side or not on their side during this time. And the Admiral actually tells them that, you know, hey, she's betrayed every organization that she's ever been in, so you guys ought to be very careful about this lady. And it sets the premise for the later action that occurs in this arc. But for now, the Straw Hat Pirates basically barely manage to escape with their lives, and they have to kind of run away at this point. Yeah, and Luffy gets his ass kicked. He basically gets frozen in. But for whatever reason, the Admiral decides, you know what, I'm just gonna, you know, let you live for now. I think mainly because of his feeling of debt to Luffy for what Luffy did to the world government and the world as a whole during the previous Alabasta arc. Which is another great arc in One Piece. I'm kind of jumping around a lot, but as I said before in previous manga reviews, mangas are very long formats, right? You gotta read like hundreds of books to kind of get what's going on. They also do this nonsense, which a lot of modern comics do, which is the whole introduction page, where all the characters get kind of like this stuff, and then you gotta read a big old pile of paragraphs to figure out what's going on. That being said, they're so much fun, and they're so, I guess, fast-paced despite the decompression, that you don't necessarily mind so much when you're reading One Piece and going through it, right? Another thing I want to mention to you, take a look at this, right? Like, if you take a look at the lettering here, look at how large the balloons and the lettering is in manga. It's very interesting. So I got this guy's coming up next. This is an American comic. So, let me see. Like, let's show some lettering right here. So take a look at the size of the lettering between the two. If you don't notice, the manga actually has a slightly larger font size. And the balloons are a lot bigger too, despite the fact that the pages are larger in American comics. Very interesting. And even, like, I have, like, here, let's grab a modern, like, here, this is Green Lantern book 4. Right, so let's grab a modern American comic. Like, even in the modern American comics, the text size is a little bit bigger, and the balloon sizes are also, there's more text per balloons in the American comics compared to the Japanese, translated, I should say. And what am I trying to say here? The Japanese manga, not only do they have more pages, but what you don't realize is that the pages are actually fundamentally smaller in terms of how much art is going on per page. Now, that's not always the case. Certain manga creators do have high detail styles, but on average, right, you're going to see, you know, bigger type font, bigger balloons, and generally less overall art per page in manga. So something to think about when you're trying to compare manga to American comics. The overall content in an American, and also I should say European comic as well, is a lot higher than the Japanese. Now, this doesn't make one right or wrong. The Japanese generally make up for this by giving you, you know, this many pages, so it's not really a big deal, right? But it's just something to consider between the two. One thing I really do like about the Japanese is that the type font is larger, so despite the fact that this thing is microscopically big, it's usually not that bad to read. It's more like if you're trying to see detail within the panels, it's kind of hard, right? But anyway, they narrowly escape with their lives, and they decide to head on to the next island once their log pose kind of sets. And it's during, they have some like comedy moments here and there, and then they run into this site, a train traveling on the sea. And this is the introduction to the Puffing Tom and the train station right here. And they meet this lady, Kokoro, and her granddaughter, Chimney, and a rabbit. And they find out that they're actually getting near the island of Water 7, which is where most of the shipbuilding occurs in the universe of One Piece. So very interesting. During this time, the Marigo, which is their ship, let's go back to, where is it? Yeah, this ship right here has been their primary ship throughout the adventures of One Piece. But it's pretty banged up. It's been through some pretty interesting adventures. And at this point, the ship's about to fall apart. So they're looking for a carpenter at this point to come in and essentially fix their ship. And this kind of drives the quest to go to Water 7 and find a carpenter, right? So they head over to Water 7, and it's a very fascinating design. One thing I will say about Oda is, even though I don't like his character designs or his art styles, I'm always amazed at the level of quality in his backgrounds and in just the other smaller stuff, right? Like, he makes his characters look like this and draws them like this, but then he makes these very nice backgrounds for them to go in. And it's kind of funny in a way that it's an interesting concept of like full immersion, right? The world around you has an almost realistic feel, but the characters are very cartoony. It's kind of fun. Babbling on a little bit, but this is like a lot of pages of stuff right here. So, you know, it's a manga, right? It's a lot of stuff that's going on here. And yeah, they end up getting into some adventures in Water 7. And they're able to exchange some treasures from a previous adventure to get some money. And they run into the Galila Company, which is, interestingly enough, a bunch of basically badass carpenters. Like, these guys will fuck you up. And they don't take shit from pirates either. So, but they go in to try to get them to fix their ship. And what's very interesting is throughout this and their adventures, and Oda also explaining Water 7 and the island of Water 7, the world, they also run into the Frankie family, which is essentially a group of ship dismantlers and bounty hunters who essentially attempt to rob Luffy and the gang, and almost do. You also get the introduction of CP9, a mysterious organization that has issues with Nico Robin, as you could tell from her reaction to that. And they go in and they almost lose the money too, which is hilarious enough, right? Get the introduction of Iceberg, Khalifa. There's like literally, like, I feel like there's thousands of One Piece characters. It's almost crazy after a while. What's really fascinating about Oda and One Piece is that he makes so many characters, and he does find a way to make all of them kind of memorable and interesting. And at the same time, you know, he also knows when to let go and move on to the next cycle, but he can bring them back almost at will. It's really fascinating when you look at One Piece as a whole in terms of storytelling, character creation, character design. Really interesting series in that regard. But anyway, yeah, some pretty bad news. What ends up happening is, despite all the money that they have, it turns out that there's really no way to fix their boat, is really the heart of the situation, which is kind of the heartbreaker, because this boat, you know, the Marigo, has been with them for, you know, obviously 33 volumes of this book, right? So for readers reading One Piece, right, they've been kind of following these adventures for many, many, many years at this point. I think this run at this point, I think it was like almost 7 or 8 years in during Water 7. I forget. But Yeah, no, it was a pretty crazy turnaround at this point, and then you're left at this cliffhanger, like, what is the crew gonna do? The boat can't make it, right? Anyhow, that's the first part of this series right here. I'll get into volume 35, I should say, in the next video. This is going to be a very, very long format because One Piece Water 7 is freaking a long-ass arc. And I'm going to see how this works, doing like volume by volume, taking a look at this. This is actually my favorite arc in One Piece. It's very, very entertaining and exciting for the most part. And to me, I think it's very quintessential One Piece. The techniques that Oda uses in telling this arc and this story, volumes 34 through I think like 45, become almost like the skeleton and blueprint for a lot of his other arcs later on. He still manages to come up with new ideas and new spins and new twists and turns to keep you interested in the story and keep this going. Obviously, we're at like 90-something volumes of One Piece. Jesus Christ. So clearly people are still buying this, and, you know, at 300 million copies sold, you know, can't really say that this isn't popular. But anyway, that's the video. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments on One Piece Water 7 Volume 34, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.